The year 2487 arrived, cloaked in the usual hum of galactic anticipation. This was the time of the Valkyrian conclave, a spectacle unmatched in its grandeur and importance across 1,000 star systems. For millennia, the Valkyrians, a species, renowned for their ethereal beauty, profound wisdom, and quiet dominance, had gathered in their shimmering capital of Xylos Prime to select the Queen of Beauty. This wasn't merely a title for the most aesthetically pleasing. It was a position of immense, unparalleled power, requiring a being who embodied strategic genius, diplomatic grace, and an almost mythical aura. Ships of every conceivable design, from the sleek, predatory vessels of the Cathar to the bulbous, glittering transports of the Centauri, had converged on the orbit of Xylos Prime, disgorging their bedecked delegates into the planetary capital's crystalline halls. Each species, whether ancient and powerful or newly ascended, sent its finest, all hoping to secure favor with the Valkyrians. Their presence was a testament to the conclave's influence, a silent acknowledgment of the Valkyrian sway over galactic politics and culture. Among the throngs of multi-limbed ambassadors, chitinous warlords, and glowing energy beings, a small, often overlooked delegation from Earth quietly made its way. Humanity was still a fledgling presence on the galactic stage, having only made consistent first contact a little over a century ago. They were seen, if they were seen at all, as an up-and-coming species, eager but inexperienced, their technology still primitive compared to the ancient empires. Liam Thorne, a human xenolinguist, felt the weight of that perception acutely. He was a man of quiet intelligence, with a deep fascination for alien cultures, but he possessed none of the flashy charisma or intimidating presence of the other delegates. His uniform, a simple dark tunic with the stylized emblem of the Terran Federation, seemed stark against the iridescent robes and shimmering bioluminescent scales surrounding him. He felt out of place, a single ordinary thread in a tapestry, woven with starlight and ancient power. The grand hall, a cavernous space carved from living crystal, thrummed with a low, anticipatory murmur. Soft, melodic chimes echoed from unseen sources, signaling the start of the ceremony. Hundreds of eyes in countless different configurations focused on the central dais, where Queen Lyra, the current Queen of Whispers, stood. Her presence alone commanded silence, her form a symphony of light and shadow, her ancient eyes holding the wisdom of centuries. The air grew thick with expectation. Everyone knew what was coming. It was tradition, an unbreakable law of the Valkyrians. Queen Lyra was about to name her successor, and it was universally understood who that would be. Her daughter, Princess Xylia. Xylia was legendary even among the Valkyrians, celebrated across the galaxy for a beauty that transcended species, an intellect that could unravel cosmic mysteries, and a captivating aura that had been known to pacify even the most aggressive warlords. Liam, like everyone else, held his breath, ready for the inevitable, for the grand pronouncement that would confirm the galaxy's most exquisite being as its most powerful leader. He watched, along with thousands of others, as Queen Lyra began, her slow, deliberate incantation, her voice weaving through the crystalline hall, building to the climax of her long reign and the ushering in of a new era. The energy in the room was almost unbearable, a tangible thing that pressed down on every being present. Queen Lyra's voice, a melodic current woven with ancient power, swelled through the crystalline hall, each syllable resonating deep within the chests of the assembled delegates. Her pronouncement was not merely spoken. It was felt, a wave of destiny washing over the vast audience. By the wisdom of our ancestors, she declared, her voice reaching every corner of the conclave, and by the guiding light of the stars, I present to you the future of the Valkyrian people, the embodiment of grace and power, your next Queen of Beauty, my daughter, Princess Xylia. A collective gasp, quickly followed by a thunderous wave of applause, erupted from the thousands of beings present. The sound was deafening, a symphony of approval from every corner of the galaxy. It was exactly as expected, a coronation foretold by prophecy and tradition. Princess Xylia, bathed in the soft, ambient light of the hall, stepped forward from behind her mother. Her appearance was breathtaking, even more stunning than the legends described. Her form was slender, almost impossibly graceful, draped in robes that seemed to capture and refract the light, shimmering with every subtle movement. Her skin, a pearlescent hue, glowed with an inner luminescence, and her long, flowing hair, like spun starlight, cascaded around her, but it was her eyes that truly captivated. They were vast, deep pools of indigo and silver, like twin nebulae, swirling with cosmic dust, holding an ancient wisdom that belied her youthful appearance. As she moved, a ripple of awe passed through the crowd, a testament to her unparalleled beauty and the sheer weight of her presence. She was everything the galaxy had anticipated, and more. Princess Xylia ascended the first few steps of the dais, her movements fluid and deliberate, a living sculpture of elegance. She paused at the top, her gaze meant to be a regal acknowledgment of her subjects, and the esteemed guests began to sweep slowly across the vast assembly. It was a practiced gesture, one she had performed countless times in lesser ceremonies, designed to encompass all, yet truly settle on none. Her eyes, those mesmerizing cosmic pools, glided over the proud, multi-limbed Centauri ambassador, whose numerous eyes blinked in respectful admiration. They passed over the stoic, armored forms of the Ka-Thar warriors, who for once held their rigid postures with a hint of softened reverence. They acknowledged the shimmering, amorphous shapes of the lumina and the quiet, contemplative gazes of the ancient Eldari. Every species, every delegate, received a fleeting moment of her attention, a silent blessing from their new sovereign. Then something shifted. The sweeping motion of her gaze, which had been so smooth and unbroken, faltered. It paused. It didn't merely linger, it locked. It settled with an almost imperceptible tremor on the small, unassuming human delegation, specifically on Liam Thorne. Liam, who had been standing slightly to the side, trying to make himself as inconspicuous as possible amidst the dazzling array of alien life, suddenly felt the full, intense weight of those nebulae-like eyes upon him. It was as if the very air around him solidified, and the cacophony of the hall faded into a distant hum. A strange, inexplicable spark seemed to leap across the vast distance between them, a connection that was both startling and profoundly intimate. It wasn't a look of recognition or curiosity or even judgment. It was something far deeper, something that resonated within the very core of his being, a warmth that spread from his chest outwards, defying logic or explanation. He felt a sudden, dizzying sense of being utterly seen, truly understood, in a way he had never experienced before. A hush, slow and creeping, began to fall over the massive hall. The thunderous applause, which had seemed endless moments before, began to dissipate, replaced by a growing silence. It wasn't the respectful silence of a moment of reverence. It was the bewildered, confused quiet of an audience sensing something profoundly amiss. The other delegates, particularly the haughty Centauri, whose multiple eyes were now wide with disbelief, and the stoic Krill, whose normally unreadable faces now showed clear signs of puzzlement, exchanged confused glances. Whispers, like dry leaves skittering across a barren plain, began to spread through the crowd. Why had she stopped? Why was she looking at the human? The Valkyrian attendants, usually so composed, showed the slightest flicker of uncertainty in their expressions. Liam, caught completely off guard, felt a rush of heat to his face, a mix of embarrassment and a strange, burgeoning sense of destiny. His heart pounded in his chest, a frantic drumbeat against the sudden, overwhelming silence. He couldn't tear his gaze away from hers, those ancient, cosmic eyes that held him captive, drawing him into an unknown future. The air crackled with an unspoken question, a tension so palpable it felt like a physical weight. The conclave, meant to be a predictable coronation, had suddenly become something else entirely. A single, unexpected gaze had just changed everything. Silence in the grand hall was no longer merely a hush. It was a heavy, suffocating blanket, pressing down on every being present. Princess Ilia's gaze remained fixed on Liam Thorne, an unwavering, almost magnetic pull that seemed to defy the very laws of physics. Her eyes, those swirling cosmic pools, held a depth that Liam couldn't comprehend, a mixture of ancient purpose and something profoundly personal. He felt exposed, vulnerable, yet strangely compelled, unable to break the connection. The air crackled with unspoken questions, with the collective bewilderment of thousands of galactic dignitaries. They watched, transfixed, as the new queen, who was moments away from accepting her rightful place, remained frozen, her focus entirely on a single, unassuming human. The tension was a living entity, tightening its grip with every passing second. Then, with a grace that bordered on the ethereal, Princess Xylia moved. She didn't turn back to the dais, nor did she acknowledge Queen Lyra, who stood silently, observing with an inscrutable expression. Instead, her slender form began to glide forward, away from the symbolic seat of power, directly into the stunned crowd. Every eye in the vast conclave followed her, a collective intake of breath echoing through the hall. Her shimmering robes seemed to flow around her, catching the light as she moved, a beacon of destiny veering wildly off its predicted course. She bypassed the proud, multi-limbed Centauri ambassador, who visibly recoiled in disbelief, his numerous eyes widening further. She swept past the formidable Kantha warlords, whose rigid postures seemed to sag slightly under the weight of the unfolding anomaly. The ancient Eldari, usually so serene, exchanged hurried, agitated whispers. She ignored the glittering Lumina, the stoic Krill, the bustling Xylos, every powerful, influential species represented in the conclave. Her path was unwavering, a direct line drawn through the heart of galactic aristocracy, leading her straight towards the small, almost forgotten, human delegation. Liam Thorne felt a cold dread mix with a strange, exhilarating current in his veins. As Elia drew closer, The warmth he had felt earlier intensified, becoming a burning sensation, a primal recognition that resonated deep within his bones. He wanted to step back, to disappear into the crowd, to deny the impossible gravity that pulled her towards him. Yet he couldn't. His feet felt rooted to the crystalline floor, his breath caught in his throat. The faces of his fellow human delegates were a mixture of bewildered awe and dawning horror. They, too, understood the immense breach of protocol, the unprecedented nature of this moment. This wasn't just a deviation. It was an earthquake, shaking the very foundations of galactic tradition. Finally, Princess Xylia stopped. She stood directly before Liam, so close he could feel the faint, cool aura emanating from her, could see the intricate patterns swirling within her indigo eyes. The silence that had fallen over the conclave was now absolute, so profound that the only sound was the frantic pounding of Liam's own heart. He could feel the collective gaze of thousands of alien beings boring into him, their disbelief, their outrage, their utter confusion, a palpable force. He braced himself, expecting a question, a command, perhaps even a reprimand for daring to meet her gaze. What came next, however, shattered every expectation, every preconceived notion of galactic order. Her voice, clear and resonant, a melodic chime that somehow cut through the thick silence and amplified across the entire conclave without the aid of any visible device, rang out. Each word was a hammer blow, striking at the very core of galactic understanding. "He is my mate," Princess Xylia declared, her gaze never leaving Liam's, her voice imbued with an ancient authority that brooked no argument. The words hung in the air, echoing off the crystalline walls, reverberating through the stunned assembly. Then she added, with an unyielding certainty that sealed the fate of the moment, "By ancient Valkyrian decree, he shall rule beside me." The effect was instantaneous and cataclysmic. Galactic shock was an understatement. It was as if a cosmic lightning bolt had struck the heart of the conclave. A collective thunderous gasp ripped through the hall, followed by an explosion of sound. The low murmur of confusion erupted into a cacophony of outrage, disbelief, and furious protest. The Centauri ambassador, his numerous limbs flailing, began to shriek protests in his guttural tongue, his eyes bulging. The Cathar warriors, usually so disciplined, broke ranks, their heavy armored forms shifting restlessly, their growls echoing through the hall. The Krill, known for their rigid adherence to tradition, recoiled as if struck, their collective minds struggling to process such an unthinkable deviation. Whispers turned into shouts, then into a chaotic roar. A human? The relatively young, unproven species, barely a blip on the galactic radar? For the Queen of Beauty, the most powerful and revered being in the known galaxy, to choose a human as her consort was not just an unprecedented breach of tradition. It was an insult of monumental proportions, a direct challenge to millennia, a Valkyrian lineage, and a profound disruption to the delicate balance of galactic power. Liam Thorne stood frozen, the words, "He is my mate," ringing in his ears, simultaneously impossible and undeniably real. The warmth he had felt earlier now surged through him, overwhelming his senses, yet beneath it a cold dread began to coil. He was no longer just Liam Thorne, xenolinguist. He was the center of a galactic maelstrom, the unwitting cause of an interstellar scandal. He could feel the furious, disbelieving gazes of 1,000 species burning into him, accusations and contempt radiating from every direction. Queen Lyra, the former Queen of Whispers, remained eerily still on the dais, her expression unreadable. Her silence, however, was not one of shock, but of profound ancient calculation. The chaos around Liam intensified, the shouts growing louder, the movements more agitated. The conclave, meant to be a celebration of beauty and order, had devolved into a scene of utter pandemonium, all because a queen had looked beyond the expected and chosen the impossible. The galaxy, it seemed, would never be the same. The grand hall of the Valkyrian conclave had transformed from a beacon of galactic unity into a tempest of outrage. The Centauri ambassador, a being named Zealer, whose multiple, prehensile limbs now thrashed wildly, led the furious chorus of protest. His guttural cries, amplified by his species' natural vocalizers, echoed through the crystalline chamber, accusing Queen Xylia of madness and Liam Thorne of sorcery. "This is an abomination," Giler shrieked, his iridescent skin flushing with indignant purple. "A violation of ancient laws. The Queen of Beauty cannot choose a primitive. This human is a commoner, unproven, unworthy." His words ignited further fury among the Centauri delegation, their collective outrage a palpable wave. The Krill, usually masters of their emotions, showed clear signs of agitation. Their metallic, segmented bodies shifted restlessly, their compound eyes, normally impassive, now narrowed with suspicion. Ambassador Cathar, their representative, a being of stoic tradition, stepped forward, his voice a low, rumbling growl that cut through the din. "This choice defies the very essence of Valkyrian lineage," he stated, his tone heavy with disappointment. "It undermines the conclave, and by extension, the stability of the galactic order. The Krill cannot endorse such a deviation." His declaration, though calmer than Giler's, carried immense weight, signaling a withdrawal of crucial support. Other species from the shimmering Lumina, who pulsed with agitated light, to the ancient Eldari who murmured in dismay, joined. The chorus of condemnation, their collective disbelief morphing into a potent blend of anger and fear. Liam Thorne stood at the epicenter of this storm, the object of thousands of furious, disbelieving gazes. The initial shock had given way to a dizzying sense of unreality, as if he were trapped in a bizarre, cosmic dream. He could feel the raw contempt radiating from the Centauri, the cold judgment from the Krill, the bewildered scorn from countless others. Every fiber of his being screamed at him to cower, to apologize, to somehow vanish from existence. Yet as the accusations rained down, a strange, quiet strength began to coalesce within him. He looked at Queen Xylia, who still stood beside him, her hand impossibly delicate, resting gently on his arm. Her face remained serene amidst the chaos, her indigo eyes holding a steadfast resolve that seemed to anchor him. He realized that her choice, far from being impulsive, was a profound act of conviction. She had staked her new reign, her very reputation on him. He could not, would not, let her down. Queen Lyra, the former Queen of Whispers, finally moved from the dais. Her movements were slow, deliberate, each step commanding attention. She allowed the initial outburst to rage, letting the various species vent their shock and anger. Her ancient eyes, however, missed nothing, assessing the depth. of the opposition, the shifting alliances. When she finally spoke, her voice, though not as amplified as Ilia's, carried an undeniable authority that began to cut through the cacophony like a finely honed blade. "Silence," she commanded, and slowly, grudgingly, the uproar began to subside. "My daughter, Queen Xylia, has spoken. Her choice, however unconventional it may seem to some, is sovereign. It is her right, granted by the ancient laws of the Valkyrian people, to choose her mate. Her wisdom, as you well know, is beyond question." She paused, letting her words sink in, her gaze sweeping over the dissenting delegates. "To question. Her choice is to question the very foundation of the Valkyrian conclave itself." Her words were a subtle but potent threat, reminding them of the Valkyrians' ultimate power and their long-standing role as galactic arbiters. Liam took a deep breath, the air still thick with tension, but now laced with a fragile silence. He looked out at the sea of alien faces, their expressions ranging from open hostility to wary curiosity. He was no diplomat, no warrior, just a xenolinguist who loved deciphering complex alien languages. Yet in this moment he felt an unexpected surge of resolve. He understood the monumental challenge that lay before him. This wasn't just about his personal life. It was about humanity's place in the galaxy. If he failed, if he proved unworthy, it would not only disgrace Queen Xylia, but also cast a long, damaging shadow over his entire species. Humanity's future on the galactic stage, its very reputation, now rested, unexpectedly, on his shoulders. He felt the immense weight of it, the crushing pressure of 1,000 eyes, but beneath it, a spark of defiance flickered. He wouldn't cower. He wouldn't apologize for who he was. He would face this storm with the quiet dignity he knew was inherent in humanity, a resilience that had seen his species through countless trials on their home world. He met the angry glares of the Centauri with a steady gaze, acknowledging their fury without flinching. He met the cold judgment of the Krill with a calm, unwavering presence. He knew this was just the beginning. The path ahead would be fraught with suspicion, challenges, and perhaps even open hostility. But with Xylia by his side, and the fate of humanity intertwined with his own, Liam Thorne, the unassuming human, found a strength he never knew he possessed, ready to face the monumental task of proving himself worthy of a queen and of a galaxy in shock. The true test, he realized, was just beginning. The uproar in the conclave had quieted to a tense, simmering silence, a fragile calm held only by the sheer authority of Queen Lyra's presence. All eyes still burning with a mixture of disbelief and resentment now turned to Queen Xylia, demanding an explanation for her unprecedented choice. She stood tall, her slender form radiating an inner light that seemed to defy the lingering hostility. Her gaze, still serene, swept over the assembled dignitaries, not in defiance, but with a profound, almost ancient understanding. When she spoke, her voice, though soft, carried an undeniable weight, cutting through the lingering tension like a warm breeze through a storm. "My choice was not made lightly," Queen Xylia began, her words echoing with a clarity that seemed to bypass the ears and resonate directly with the minds of those present. "It was not born of whim nor of fleeting emotion, but of necessity. For centuries the Valkyrian Empire has relied on tradition, on lineage, on the wisdom passed down through generations. And for centuries that has served us well." A pause. allowing her words to settle before she continued, her voice gaining a subtle, urgent edge. But there is a threat, an insidious, unseen darkness from the galactic periphery, slowly, silently, consuming all it touches. It is a threat that our traditional methods, our ancient wisdom, have failed to fully perceive, let alone counter. A ripple of unease spread through the hall. The concept of an unseen darkness sent shivers down the spines of even the most hardened warriors. The Centauri ambassador, Xyler, momentarily forgot his outrage, his numerous eyes wide with a dawning fear. The Krill, ever pragmatic, shifted their focus from Liam to the Queen, their compound eyes blinking rapidly as they processed this sudden, grave revelation. Queen Xalia continued, her voice now imbued with a quiet intensity that commanded absolute attention through deep Valkyrian psionic attunement, she explained, her gaze briefly meeting Liam's. I have sensed a unique resonance within this human, Liam Thorne, a resonance unlike any I have encountered in the myriad species of our galaxy. It is a blend of adaptability, a profound empathy, and an unyielding spirit that has, until now, been overlooked by our galaxy's established powers. She paused, allowing the weight of her words to sink in. His mind, unburdened by millennia of ingrained Valkyrian thought patterns, unconstrained by the rigid traditions of other ancient empires, possesses a capacity for unconventional thought, for seeing solutions where we see only dead ends. Liam felt a jolt of surprise at her words, a sudden understanding of the immense burden she had taken on by choosing him. He had always thought of his human perspective as a disadvantage among the ancient, powerful aliens, but Xylia saw it as a strength. He listened intently as she elaborated, her voice gaining a passionate conviction. This ancient darkness, this consuming void, preys on predictability, on established patterns. Our traditional strategies, honed over millennia, are precisely what it expects. We need a mind that can think outside of those patterns, a mind capable of radical innovation, of forging new paths where none existed before. We need his inherent drive to protect, his species' unique history of overcoming impossible odds, of adapting to the most hostile environments. She looked out at the assembly, her gaze challenging each and every delegate. I believe Liam's human perspective, his capacity for raw, untamed ingenuity, is the key to our survival, the very element that will allow us to perceive and counter this encroaching threat. The hall remained silent, but the nature of that silence had shifted. It was no longer purely hostile, but now laced with a potent mix of fear and dawning curiosity. The revelation of a hidden, galactic-level threat had momentarily overshadowed their prejudice against Liam. Queen Xylia, sensing the shift, pressed her advantage. I challenge you, she declared, her voice ringing with authority, to look beyond your ingrained prejudices, beyond the superficial differences, and see the potential in this unexpected alliance. The Valkyrian Empire faces an existential crisis, and we will not face it alone. She then made an offer that sent a ripple of astonished murmurs through the crowd. To any species that stands with us, that accepts this new path, we will offer unique Valkyrian technology and knowledge. Our advancements in energy manipulation, in spatial distortion, in resource synthesis, knowledge that has been guarded for millennia, will be shared. For the first time, we open our archives not for conquest, but for survival. The Centauri, Ambassador Xyler still bristled, but his multi-limbed form was less agitated, his numerous eyes now darting between Liam and the Queen, a calculating glint replacing his earlier fury. The Krill ambassador, Cathar, remained stoic, but a subtle shift in his posture indicated deep contemplation. The offer of Valkyrian technology was a powerful incentive, one that could elevate any species to unimaginable heights. Liam, standing beside Xylia, felt a surge of hope. He saw the flicker of greed, of ambition, but also of genuine concern on some alien faces. Xylia's gambit was daring, a monumental risk, but it was working. She was leveraging their fear of the unknown threat and their desire for power to forge an alliance centered around him, a human. The weight on his shoulders felt heavier, but also clearer. He was no longer just a xenolinguist caught in a cosmic drama. He was a vital piece in a galactic struggle, his human insight now a potential weapon against an unseen enemy. The suspense in the hall was no longer about who the Queen would choose, but about whether the galaxy would accept this radical shift and what terrifying darkness awaited them all. The tension in the conclave hall, though still present, had begun to morph from outright hostility into a wary, calculating silence. Queen Xylia's revelation of the unseen darkness and her unprecedented offer of Valkyrian technology had forced the assembled delegates to reconsider their initial outrage. The Centauri ambassador, Xyler, though still visibly fuming, had retreated into a huddle with his advisors, their numerous eyes darting between Liam and the Valkyrian archives, clearly weighing their pride against the promise of unimaginable power. The Krill ambassador, Cathar, ever the pragmatist, was the first to cautiously approach the dais. His metallic voice, devoid of emotion, stated, "The Krill will observe. We will assess this unconventional alliance and the nature of this threat. The offer of Valkyrian knowledge is significant." His words, though not an endorsement, were a crucial step, signaling that logic, not prejudice, would guide their decision. Slowly, reluctantly, and with much grumbling, other species began to follow suit. The Lumina, their forms pulsing with a hesitant curiosity, expressed their willingness to learn more. Even some of the more traditional Eldari, swayed by the gravity of the Queen's warning, indicated their cautious interest. Liam, standing beside Queen Xylia, watched this slow, grudging acceptance unfold. He knew it wasn't genuine warmth or immediate trust, but a fragile truce born of fear and self-interest. Yet it was a beginning. He felt Queen Xylia's hand gently squeeze his arm, a silent acknowledgment of their shared victory in this initial daunting hurdle. Over the following weeks, the Valkyrian capital of Xylos Prime transformed into a bustling hub of interspecies collaboration. Valkyrian scientists, initially stiff and reserved, began to share their ancient knowledge with the visiting delegations. Liam, mentored closely by Queen Lyra, the former Queen of Whispers, and guided by Queen Xylia, quickly proved his worth. His human ingenuity, often dismissed as simplistic by more advanced species, became his greatest asset. He approached problems with a fresh perspective, unburdened by millennia of ingrained Valkyrian methodologies or the rigid protocols of other ancient empires, while Valkyrian minds, accustomed to elegant, complex solutions, sometimes overlooked the obvious. Liam's human insight often pinpointed the simple, yet effective, answer. He could see patterns in the data about the unseen darkness, that Valkyrian scholars, steeped in their own intricate theories, had missed. He proposed unconventional solutions, suggesting modifications to Valkyrian energy shields that their own engineers had dismissed as too crude, or suggesting new ways to analyze spatial anomalies that deviated from established protocols. His collaborative approach, his willingness to admit when he didn't know something, and his genuine curiosity about other species' perspectives slowly began to chip away at the prejudice that surrounded him. He worked tirelessly, often late into the cycles, poring over ancient Valkyrian star charts and energy readings, his human brain processing information in ways that surprised even the Valkyrian AI. The unseen darkness was revealed to be a sentient, parasitic entity, a cosmic blight that consumed all forms of energy and life, leaving behind only dead, silent space. It didn't attack with fleets or weapons. It simply absorbed, slowly but relentlessly. It was a threat that preyed on predictability, on the established patterns of galactic life. Queen Xylia's initial assessment had been chillingly accurate. The Valkyrians, for all their power, had been too focused on external, conventional threats. Liam's human insight, his capacity for radical, outside-the-box thinking, became a crucial weapon against this insidious enemy. He recognized its subtle energy signature, identifying its slow, creeping advance through spatial distortions that Valkyrian sensors had dismissed as background noise. He proposed a daring counter-strategy, not direct confrontation, but a complex, multi-species energy net designed to disrupt its absorption patterns and force it into a temporary, vulnerable state. The Centauri, still wary but now genuinely fearful of the encroaching blight, begrudgingly committed their advanced propulsion technology to the project. The Krill, recognizing the sheer scale of the threat, offered their formidable defensive systems. Humanity, once a galactic footnote, now stood at the forefront of a monumental effort, allied with the galaxy's most beautiful and powerful species, and guiding the defense of countless others. The unexpected union of Queen Xylia and Liam Thorne, once a source of galactic shock and outrage, had become the unlikely catalyst for a new era of galactic cooperation. It was an alliance forged not by power or conquest, but by an extraordinary interspecies love and a shared, desperate fight for survival. As the first experimental energy net was successfully deployed, pushing back a tendril of the unseen darkness, a fragile hope bloomed across the galaxy. Humanity, through Liam, had not only found its place among the stars, but had become an indispensable beacon, proving that true strength lay not in tradition or might, but in adaptability, empathy, and the courage to embrace the unforeseen. The dawn of a new era had truly begun.